The proposition being refuted is raising the federal minimum wage will cause detriment to the economy and the American people. The advocate supports the major claim with the three following secondary claims. Business will fall to grow if the minimum wage is increased. Raising the minimum wage will hurt the financial status of the lower working class. And disproportionate harm will be done to teenagers if the minimum wage is increased. Beginning with the first secondary claim, I felt that the evidence was unviable. The advocate began supporting his claim by citing data about the result in loss of jobs from procon.org. Now, procon.org is an unbiased website that presents both sides of the controversial issue supported by evidence. But the evidence given by procon.org, according to their sources page, which has not been updated since the 18th of May of 2016, proves to have sources with data that are not recent. Therefore, the evidence presented by the advocate is unreliable due to the outdated source. The advocate continues to support his claim that companies will close due to a spike in labor costs and gives an example about Walmart closing stores from Forbes magazine. It was argued that the increase in minimum wage caused the stores to close. But to start, I really want to point out that the advocate left out necessary information from the Forbes article that reads, "We definitely got someone supposedly well-informed stating that it was the higher minimum wage in the city which led to the decision not to open stores which had been promised." The word supposedly shows that the journalist was not sure if the source truly knew what he was talking about, making this piece of evidence unreliable as well. What truly happened to Walmart, according to New York Times, when speaking to the CEO, it was due to the new tax bill. Walmart decided to close stores and on top of that increase the minimum wage to $11 an hour, expand maternity leave and family leave benefits, and give bonuses of up to $1,000 to eligible employees, meaning that it was in order to benefit the workers and the American people. Moving on to the advocate's next secondary claim that raising minimum wage will hurt the financial status of the lower working class. Again, evidence is used from procon.org to state that there would be a decrease in earned income, which is also too old for the current issue because according to the source page, the data collected was taken December in the year of 1999. The advocate then continues to support this claim with a 2013 report from the Federal Reserve Bank about the possible increase in price of the consumer goods that dated back almost 5 years ago, allowing me to see that the report is also not current. In addition, I also felt that the supporting evidence was irrelevant to hurting the financial status of the low working class, because there was no connection stating that the increase in price of consumer goods will hurt the income of the lower working class. Finally, I end with the advocate's third secondary claim stating that disproportionate harm will be done to the teenagers if the minimum wage is increased. The advocate claims that teenagers will not be able to find jobs if the minimum wage increases, based on what sounds to me like an assumption, because there was no data presented stating the business. There was no data presented stating that businesses don't give jobs to many unexperienced teenagers due to the current minimum wage. Therefore, I feel that the advocate presented a categorical syllogism because Forbes magazine presents this inference as though all businesses won't hire teenagers if the minimum wage is increased. I also find that the evidence used from the Employee Policies Institute, the American Enterprise Institute, and the Industrial and Labor Relations Review all include data that is too old to the current issue because we have data from these sources taken far back as 2001 and 2005 and the most recent 2014. So in conclusion, I I feel that the advocate had insufficient reliable sources to back his major claim. Thank you.
You're gonna give me that outline back? Yeah, there we go. All right, well, the start was good. You have an identification of what the advocate's claim is and what the secondary claims are going to be. You're going to label those points as you go along so it stays pretty well organized. Basically, the same issue comes up on all 3 points, but you spend the most time explaining it on the first and the second point, and that is that you are arguing that the advocate's data is old. You undermine the procon.org information by suggesting that it hasn't been updated in at least 2 years. So that's a general attack on that source. By the way, that source is an aggregate site. It's not really presenting information that is first-hand. You should always, whenever you're using information from a site like that, go to the primary source for the information and don't cite Procon. But you've got a legitimate point that some of the information is perhaps a little bit older. However, there's not any challenge to the reasoning the advocate's using. So if the evidence is old, but there hasn't been any dramatic change, is the premise still viable that businesses could be threatened by increases in costs? The notion that costs have nothing to do with businesses, I think, is not really going to work very well. The Walmart example, I thought, was your best response. You need to phrase it a little bit differently because, again, you make it sound, it should be much clearer. Walmart made its decisions about closing stores not on the basis of an increase in the minimum wage, but based on a variety of business decisions, including the tax bill that they got and plans to expand benefits to their current employees. So the idea that it's that we're going to blame increases in the minimum wage on Walmart closing stores is a little bit problematic. I don't remember what the advocate's evidence was on that particular point, but that seems like it's a pretty good response. That's a counterclaim that offers alternate causality on that point. The working class information, again, this is a criticism of the dates of the evidence. It dates back to 1999, and then there was some information from 2013 that's still 5 years ago. However, the question still remains, would an increase in costs have a negative consequence on people in that particular category? It's likely to. Now, it may not be quantifiable the way the advocate presented, but you have no other argument on this other than, the data is a little bit old. And then you say, that it can't, you're not sure it can be believed. And then there was another argument that you made that I think was kind of your assertion on that particular point. And then the third point about the potential hazard to teens, again, there's some question about the age of information. I thought that's, again, the same general response that you're giving here. Your explanation about the categorical syllogism, well, I don't know that they're making a categorical syllogism. They are trying to reason deductively using a generalization. You say that the advocate's assumption that people are unlikely to hire somebody who's inexperienced at a high price is not a very good assumption. I'm not sure why you think it's not a good assumption. Maybe they didn't do a good job suggesting that it ought to be a safe assumption, but you haven't done much to diminish it either, except say, well, it's an assumption. Well, that part's true. Now the question is, what kind of evidence do we have? I don't remember what the advocate's evidence was. If we were hearing the debate back to back, that might have made a difference. Okay, thank you.